Hi, everyone. I'm Joan Squires. I'm president of Omaha Performing Arts, and I'm delighted to welcome you. And thanks for joining us this evening. As you can see, I am socially distanced here in our own Orpheum Theater, and I've got a whole lot of empty seats behind me. I have to tell you, it's sad because all of you should be in all of those seats. So what I'm here tonight to talk about is why we can't quite get back to the theater and a little bit behind the scenes for Broadway. You know, we wanted to host this special event for our most loyal subscribers to give you a unique look behind the scenes of what it does take to put on a touring Broadway show and why it's taking us some time to do that. We want to keep you all informed about our shows and all of the details behind the scenes. So before any of you ask, unfortunately, tonight, I'm not going to give you quite the details of exactly when the shows are going to come back, but we are going to announce that on September 21st. So you'll just need to tune in. We'll get that information to you soon. We're working those details and just getting the final ones in place. But what I can tell you is there will be changes. And tonight, we're going to talk about what it takes to put on a touring Broadway show, why it's taking us a while to make those confirmations, to rearrange not just the season here in Omaha, but across the country. So as you all know, in mid-March, we had to close our beautiful Orpheum Theater and the wonderful Holland Performing Arts Center. We've had to cancel all of the performances, including our touring Broadway productions. And you know, I do have to tell you, it's taken a big toll. It's taken a toll on the people who work here, not just at Omaha Performing Arts, but the amazing and talented actors, our crews, the people behind the scenes, everyone that it takes on to put on these stages. And it's really taken a toll even on the businesses around the theater. You know, Omaha Performing Arts has a $48 million annual economic impact. And that's because we bring people to restaurants, do they park downtown, we really generate lots of activity and lots of jobs. And so many people have been impacted by the closures due to the COVID pandemic. But our focus, number one, is to keep everybody safe. So you're going to see some changes when you come back to our theaters. We've got a number of safety measures and changes in protocols to make sure that you, our patrons, our artists, our staff, and our volunteers are all safe when they return to our theaters. We've been working closely with experts from the medical profession, including people from University of Nebraska Medical Center, the Global Center for Health Security, and our fellow industry professionals to make sure that when we return, that we're doing it as safely as possible and that we mitigate the risk from the COVID-19. So we've got a video to show you what some of those changes are.
As Omaha Performing Arts prepares to reopen the Holland Performing Arts Center and Orpheum Theater, nothing is more important than the health and safety of our patrons, staff, artists, and community. To ensure the safety of those who work at and visit our venues, we've implemented a number of changes to provide the best performing arts experience. Our venues have undergone enhanced cleaning and sanitation by our operations staff. All common touch points are sanitized with increased frequency. Performance halls and larger gathering areas are cleaned first and then sanitized using electrostatic technology, which allows disinfecting solution to adhere to all surfaces. For your convenience, hand sanitizer dispensers are available throughout the buildings. We're also improving the air quality at our venues. To ensure the air in our buildings is safe when you return, air handling units are being upgraded to filter out viruses through ventilation and fresh air exchanges. To protect you, our staff, and volunteers, all OPA team members are required to wear face masks and receive temperature checks upon arriving for their shift. To help reduce the amount of physical contact at the Holland and Orpheum, we're creating a touchless experience in our restrooms. With mobile ticket delivery, new security scanners, and cashless transactions, in addition to all major credit cards, we now accept Google Pay or Apple Pay to purchase food or beverages. Digital program books will also be available in the Ticket Omaha app and on our website. When you attend an event at the Holland or Orpheum, Compliance with local and national regulations regarding COVID-19 is expected. Masks are mandatory for all performances. As a reminder, with social distancing in place, entry and exit may take slightly longer than expected. Together, our efforts will help create a safe and enjoyable experience for all. For more information, please visit o-pa.org.
So as you can see, lots of changes in our buildings, but again, this is so that everybody is safe when we get a chance to return. But through this closure, we've also done a lot of work to stay connected virtually, and I hope you've been tuning in. We've had performances, education opportunities, and more. And actually, tonight's just another chance for us to stay connected to all of you, our patrons who are so important to us. So tonight we're here to talk about not just everything we're doing, but specifically Broadway and touring Broadway, and we're offering that to all of you. But I think I'm especially pleased tonight because I've got a really special guest. Lauren Reed is COO of the John Gore Organization, which is the parent company for Broadway across America. Lauren is also chair-elect of the Broadway League, which is our trade association for our industry. And I think most importantly, Lauren is just a dear friend of mine. She's one of the top leaders in our industry, and I think her experience and her background are going to give us some special insights and I think some really good knowledge and some information you'll all be interested in. So, Lauren, I'm happy to welcome you virtually to the Orpheum Theater.
Hi, thank you, Joan. It's great to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us this evening. So, Lauren, it might be helpful. You were in New York when COVID-19 really shut down the industry. Could you share a little bit about what that experience was like from mid-March, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. It's surreal that 6 months later now, I guess it's been, and we're talking about it. But I remember the day vividly. I was sitting at the Broadway League, as you mentioned, the trade association for our industry, kind of like the NBA is to basketball, the Broadway League is to Broadway. And around the table in the boardroom were a number of leading producers of Broadway shows that were in performance, a number of the venue owners who operate the theaters on Broadway. And we were having a lot of conversations with medical experts and discussing, this was on March 12th, what we should do. And it became very clear that everyone in that room believed that safety was paramount and that the right decision would be to close our theaters that very day. So this was, I'm guessing, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We have performances starting as early as I think 7 o'clock on that day, that evening. And we were in touch clearly with the government officials, Governor Cuomo's office in New York. And the announcement was made, actually he made it, that Broadway was closing. We certainly didn't think at that very moment it would be closed for as long as it has been. Mm-hmm. But that's how it all, there are 41 theaters on Broadway in New York, and everyone went dark that night. We went back, all of the producers of those shows went back and told their cast at 5 o'clock backstage that there would be no performance that night. And then everyone did their work and notifying ticket holders for that night and on.
Yeah, I can't imagine even the heartbreak and the shock and almost the trauma of all of that all at once to shut down such a vibrant and enormous industry and the responsibility of that. I think I just can't imagine what you all went through, Lauren, to do all of that. I know it reverberated here in Omaha, and even we were trying to figure out with Dear Evan Hansen was due to load in a couple of days later, and what the decisions were even on the road. So that decision in New York then I think started permeating across the country.
It did. I mean, I would say in New York it was particularly painful because the show, a hot new show coming out of London called Six, was slated to open that very night. They'd worked so hard and had just finished all their previews and had planned a big opening night party. And that was all canceled. As it relates to the road, there are about 200 cities across the country that present Broadway shows. About 80 of them, of those 200, present Broadway shows in like at least for 1 week, like Omaha does, a Tuesday through Sunday performance. We happen to work in a number of those cities with partners like you. And we had seen, if you recall, in Washington State, actually COVID kind of started there, or at least we got a little glimmer of it. And we had a Frozen, which was on national tour. Well, it was also in New York. There was a tour, was there, and we were hearing and observing that there were some issues. And we were able to close Frozen, and they got all their performances, and then it was moving on to Portland. But it didn't make all of its performances in Portland. By the time we shuttered all of Broadway, or all of Broadway was shuttered, I would say within a week, every city around the country, every theater was dark for Broadway shows. And in fact, many of them, just like Frozen, left all of their scenic designs, all of their, sets, costumes in the theater. And the theater was locked.
Yeah, you can't imagine the effect of that. And then can you talk a little bit about what happens to those actors and the cast members and the musicians and the directors? I mean, it really affected so many people.
Yeah, it goes beyond just the people on the stage. Obviously, you've got to remember that there are stagehands, wardrobe folks, dressers, ushers, box office staff. All of them were immediately out of work, and have been since that very day on March 12th.
Yeah. So it's a tough time for the industry. And, I think it may help also with our viewers tonight, Lauren, to understand a little bit about not just your knowledge of New York, but if you could put that in perspective, tell them maybe a little bit and start with about the John Gore organization and Broadway Across America, and your company in touring Broadway. If you could just give them some background then, as we can put this in some context.
Sure. Broadway Across America is among the largest producing and presenting theater organizations in the world. We develop Broadway shows. We invest in Broadway shows in New York, and also bring them out all around the country on tour. So we handle all aspects, again, from developing the idea to getting it to the stage, and then to making sure that we bring it all across the country to those people who can't necessarily or don't see it in New York. Sure. And we operate in about 47 cities, one of which is Omaha, and at the beautiful Orpheum.
Well, it's been a great partnership, and I know you've joined us in our beautiful Orpheum a number of times.
Yep. Yes, I have.
Yeah. So, well, I think, Lauren, a lot of this behind the scenes, sometimes, our audiences show up and they see these wonderful productions. They don't think about how shows get put together, or the people that really make that happen. It's not always something when you're sitting in a theater and excited to see an opening of a show, but they're really dependent on the producers that provide the capitalization. They hire the creative teams and ensure the shows are produced. Do you want to talk a little bit about that role? Because at Broadway Across America, you are that role sometimes and invest in shows and do that, but then we've got the producers who do that. Could you share a little bit of information, please?
Sure. I mean, I think every show has what we call a lead producer, and there is ultimately one person or two or three people that are responsible to develop the idea, to hire the creative team, as you suggested, hire the casting directors, secure the Broadway theater, and everything soup to nuts. And then we can come in as investors or as lead producers. And really nothing begins, no show happens without that lead producer and that effort behind it. And producing, you can come up with this idea and find the script and hire the right creative team, the director and the choreographer. It could take 10 years to develop that idea or that show, to bring it from an idea to a Broadway stage. You got to have a stomach of steel, I like to say, to be a producer.
And I think a very deep wallet sometimes too.
or friends with some interest in helping you out in supporting
Yeah,
me.
it's risky. You have to believe. You just have to believe in the theater and what you want to produce. And, we've got some wonderful people who've given us these great shows, but they really have taken a long time to bring them fruition. So to me, that adds to the heartbreak of being closed at the moment, but really those behind the scenes. So, but I know we have a special friend that has recorded a little bit of background for us on that, to talk about why it is so complicated if you shut these shows down, to start to get them back and to reopen them. Could you introduce her for us, please, Lauren?
It would be my pleasure. We asked Sue Frost, who was a Tony-winning producer. You might remember her show Memphis, also the lead producer of Come From Away, to share a little bit about what it's like to get a show on the road, not just in New York, but to bring it to the road. Sue is an industry leader. She's very active in the Broadway League. She's previously chaired the Audience Engagement Committee, head of, which I think, Joan, you're the current chair right now of the Audience Engagement Committee.
Sue's still on the committee, though, fortunately. So
yeah, okay. She's on a number of task force right now, really focused on reopening Broadway and how we market and connect and communicate with everybody to do so. And she shares a spot with Joan and me on the Broadway's Board of Governors. She's playing a giant part in bringing Broadway back, and actually in bringing the road back. She's got a great affection and love for making sure her shows play all of our cities across America. And I'm thrilled to have her say a few words here.
Yeah, she's some of you may have met her. She's been in Omaha a couple of times actually when her shows were here. And I think really importantly, and it says something about Sue that she and the show Come From Away, along with Broadway Across America, helped us raise $75,000 for the American Red Cross for flood relief when in Nebraska and Southwest Iowa when they were here in April of 2019. I mean, it is something what they do that Lauren, your organization, along with Come From Away and Sue, really wanted to step up and do something because it was such a critical need. And so she does understand the importance of connecting to community. So we've got, I think, a video if we can get a chance to hear from Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Frost, and I'm the producer of the musical Come From Away. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the challenges we producers are facing as we look toward bringing our shows back to the road. The most important thing for us right now is, of course, health and safety of our company and of the audience. To talk a little bit about the challenges we have keeping our company safe, my show, Come From Away, is a relatively small show, which means we travel with about 60 people. And that means we have to think about their safety as we move from city to city, whether we're on an airplane or whether we're on a bus. We have to think about moving in and out of hotels. What are those hotels like? Do they have safety protocols? Are they cleaned regularly? We're working with the unions who are very concerned about their members and making sure that when they come back, they're in a safe environment. And then when we're at the theater, we're backstage together, we're in dressing rooms together, we're interacting with your local crews. Some of our orchestras are interacting with local musicians in a crowded orchestra pit. How do we protect everyone? So all of those things are things that we think about and we're working on and trying to develop a plan so that when we do come back, we can stay back and we can keep everybody performing. Remounting our show is going to present its own set of challenges, but nothing like the challenges that a brand new show is going to face, because not only do they have to put a show up from scratch and cast it and rehearse it and costume it and build the scenery, all of that has to happen in a safe environment, in an environment where people are protected and where we know that the end result is going to be realized in a timely fashion. It's a lot to think about, but think about all of these tours as their own worlds, and they travel around from place to place with truckloads of scenery and costumes and props and all of the actors and stage managers and company managers and band and crew and all of those little pieces that have to go back together again. And we have to know that the scenery's running smoothly, the costumes still fit, and the lights and the sound equipment are still working. One of the reasons it's going to take us a while to come back is we need to come back to full houses. The experience of sharing a Broadway show between the actor and the audience is unique and special. And socially distanced audiences are not going to create anywhere near the same feeling that a house full of people laughing, crying, clapping does. It is also not possible for us to make this work financially. We need to know that we can accommodate all of the subscribers in the week that we're in town. We need to know that we can meet our financial model and what it takes for us to travel from town to town, what it takes for us to present the show. That financial model requires full houses. But mostly it is that relationship between our actors, between our performers and you, and the energy that that you both feed off of creates that unique experience, which is a Broadway show. But we're going to get there. Don't you worry, we're going to get there.
Yes, we will get there. Sue is correct, and we will do it. Lauren, I think I'm most taken with her final comments though about the energy and the experience of live. We've been doing a lot of virtual. At the end of the day, you get zoomed out, or we've been streaming a lot. It's the live experience for Broadway, don't you think?
I do. I think that is it's the gathering. It's the reacting to the emotions and the people, not just on the stage, but the people around you. And that's what makes it so special. And if you didn't really realize it then or couldn't articulate that, I think you're right. Not having that ability to do that now, I think really kind of highlights our need and desire, our human desire. It is it's pretty profound.
Yeah, I know that's what I miss. But I think about these productions, and you think about the actors on stage, and it can be an intimate experience. They're interacting with each other. They are in such close proximity. I think that safety factors for them are a huge challenge. And I'm curious, what about things that are being done to protect the people that are on the stage.
Well, you're right. The very nature of Broadway, which is different than a concert or a comedy event, but the very nature of Broadway with the number of actors that are on the stage makes it almost impossible to socially distance. Think about it. I don't know how you have a scene on stage between two people and socially distance. And in a touring production, in an average touring production, we have about 50 people, whether it's the actors or the cast and the crew. So all of those people are backstage during a show. And so we are right now working very hard, looking at guidelines and protocols, and speaking with medical experts in every region and community, and at the federal level as well, state and federal level, to design effective guidelines and protocols that keep our actors and our musicians and our cast and crew safe. Never mind, we also have to consider the interaction between when we bring our show into your venue at the Orpheum, and that interaction between these two bubbles, right, of people, and then add the layer of the audience as well, and making sure that the audiences are safe.
Yeah, these backstages are not very big. So just that, and then with the touring, with the hotels, as Sue mentioned, and the restaurants and where they're staying and how they get there, I think there's so many considerations. So I think sometimes when all of you in our virtual audience tonight think about, why aren't you opening yet? You have all these factors are really playing an important role. Lauren, the other piece Sue mentions too is these creative teams, which are really a special group of people to come together for the shows. And you have your director and your choreographer and your lighting designers and others. They get busy and get on to other productions. Can you talk about that a little bit for our audience tonight?
I'd be happy to. I think Sue hit the nail on the head that I'd like to highlight a little bit. The shows are all in different phases and stages of their life.
Sure.
So there's some shows, as Sue said, that quote remount. She used the word remount. Those are shows that had already been cast, that had already been toured. The sets have already been built. They're a moving show from city to city to city. And they could be in the beginning of their tour, the middle, or almost the end. Then there's a new show like A To Kill a Mockingbird that's playing in New York that hasn't yet cast for their tour, that hasn't built the set for their tour or the costumes for the tour. So each of those individual shows has their own kind of unique set of circumstances that they have to address. And so can't cast a broad swath, but I would just say that on a show like To Kill a Mockingbird, as an example, Bartlett Sher, who is the director, Tony Award-winning director, that show, since it was such a giant hit in New York, was about to do a big cast change. Jeff Daniels was going out of the show in New York. So Bartlett Sher needed to be in New York to rehearse the new stars coming in. In addition, on Bartlett Sher's calendar, not just Bartlett's, but a lot of the creative team's calendar, they were going to open on the West End, a West End production. And they were going to open a touring production that was going to and is going to tour the country. Now, all of that was neatly planned right on the calendar until COVID came. And so now it all has to be rejiggered and starting all over. So what was already complicated logistically with a lot of these really first-rate creative teams, with COVID got even more complicated.
Yeah, and there's long timing. As you think about the shows that were already in production could rehearse in a fairly short period of time if they can get the cast together. Some of these shows, you're starting from scratch. So
That's right.
it's exactly, it's a long lead time.
So in Sue's position with Come From Away, she's got her cast. The sets are built. She's got to go get her set out of Dallas because the set is stranded in Dallas right now, in the theater, and rework where she's going to tour. But assuming all of those cast and crew come back, and most of them will, she can move a little bit more quickly. And instead of a number of months, several months, she can perhaps have just a few. So that, and every single show has its own issues, complications.
Sure. Well, I think then I'd like to move on to that. We're talking about the shows, but then as you start to get them ready, it is before COVID, the world's biggest jigsaw puzzle is to route these shows across the country. Now with COVID and all of the changes that are happening, I compared to sort of a 10D Rubik's cube. There's so many pieces to doing that. Do you want to talk a little bit about the logistics of shows and the interconnection of all of us in this touring Broadway industry?
Sure. I mean, again, Sue in her video talked about trucks, and she's not talking about like the kind of trucks that my husband drives, but she's talking about 18-wheelers. And just an average show travels in 5 to 6 18-wheelers, and that's just the set. And then you've got to add in 50 or 60 people and fly them in and out from cities, and that's just the logistical kind of piece of that. And so it makes practical sense that when you build a tour, that you need to build it in a route that's geographically smart. In other words, you shouldn't be going from Omaha to Tampa if you're going to open in 1 week and you've got a 1 week show, right? So you've got to find different cities along a smart geographical route to stop and be able to play. So that's number one. That seems reasonable. But what makes it a little more difficult is all of these theaters are not always available. They have different shows at different times, so you've got to work around the building's calendar, and then you've got to make sure that, well, frankly, you've got to make sure now that COVID's happening that you have enough cities. This is a very risky business, as you pointed out. And these tours need these shows need at least 30 to 35 cities in order to just recoup, not make money or make any profit, but just to recoup the initial capitalization of what could be $8 million or something to build this show. And so if you got to find 30 of them in a reasonable route at a time that they can all play that makes sense, and in places that have a great interest and a good subscription base to bring these shows in. So when you throw this pandemic in now and trying to already navigate the complicated logistics of national touring, you've made it a little more difficult because every single city and state is in a different place with this virus right now.
Right. And so much more complicated because you can't just plan across the country. We always liked, frankly, that we were in the middle of the middle. So we always thought, oh, this is a good spot in Omaha because tours often have to come through here. But with that, we're also trying to balance the season. We're trying to make sure that we don't have 3 Broadway shows 3 weeks in a row, or that we've got a mix, particularly of the biggest hits out of New York, along with some revivals and favorites, returning shows, and how we create and curate a season is a piece of that very complicated puzzle as well. And I think it's interesting, Lauren, because normally we take a couple of years to put these seasons together and we get our multi-week shows booked a couple of years in advance. And we're really working with COVID and rescheduling. It has just made it a whole different universe now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very picky about the shows we want to bring.
Yes.
We listen to what our ticket buyers want to see. We pay attention. We do a lot of research. And you're right. We've got to make sure we bring the fan favorites and the best of the best. So we could throw something in, but that's not what we want.
No, and we're careful. And we've had a great partnership and I think have really brought the best shows. And until COVID hit, I knew it was going to be one of our best seasons yet. And those shows will get back here. But as we put them together, we've had to really make some of those shifts. So we've got another guest on video that I think can also talk a little bit about this booking process. Meredith Blair is president of the Booking Group. It's a leading Broadway booking agency in New York. And I think she's got some really good insights on the intricacies of the industry and really what it takes from their standpoint as they book shows, the city to city, and the difficulties that does. So I think we've got a video on Meredith now.
Hi, I'm Sue Frost, and I'm the producer of the musical Come From Away.
Hi, my name is Meredith Blair. I'm the president of the Booking Group, and I represent the national tours of Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen, Come From Away, Mean Girls, the Book of Mormon, To Kill a Mockingbird, and many others. And I'm here to talk to you about the process of booking a tour. So to start with the basics, in order to get a show from point A to point B, you have to determine the size of the show, which determines how quickly you can travel. One of our objectives is to open in a given city on a Tuesday and close on a Sunday. Needless to say, some markets are closer to each other than others. Shows travel anywhere from a 3 to a 4 truck show to 25 to 30 trucks. Those are the big blockbusters. Generally speaking, most touring shows travel in anywhere from 5 to 8 trucks. The challenges of routing a tour are the availability of the venues. So if I'm starting in Buffalo, the next logical thing would be to go to Rochester or to go to Cleveland, but the venue that I need to go to next may not be available because they've got another show then, or the symphony is in the venue then, or there's a graduation, or there's any number of things or other commitments that the venue may have that don't make it available. So one of the challenges now in the current climate in booking a contiguous tour is that we don't necessarily have any consistency in what states are open when. So if I'm trying to get a show across the country, I need to know that I can get from Ohio to Iowa and that the states in between are open for business. But that's one of the many challenges that we're all trying to face in many different walks of life, not just in the theater business. The process has changed a little bit for us. No, it's changed a great deal for us over the past several months, having to deal with the shutdowns across the nation. So we are actively trying to put the pieces of the puzzle back together multiple times as the landscape keeps changing and as the timing keeps changing and as we continue, unfortunately, to live in a world where we don't have all the answers yet. So we're dealing with that reality, and we're booking and we're rebooking, and we will continue to rebook until we can get these shows back on the road and back to your cities. That's the goal.
Yeah, I think Meredith really summarized some of the things we've been talking about, and just the changes, and then we've made more, and that's why it's taking some time. So we appreciate her insights on that. And I think so that all of you understand why we have not been able to make those announcements yet. But I think, Lauren, as we talk about touring Broadway, what else do you think our subscribers and patrons should really understand about touring Broadway and what it does take to return here to the Orpheum Theater?
Well, I mean, listen, I listen to Meredith and I smile because she is the ultimate planner. And this experience that we are all living together in our wonderful community of Broadway is really teaching us that we need to be we're going to have to be a little flexible. And things are fluid, and what we believe today is going to work might change, probably will change, and it has already. But I think one thing that's really important that I've recognized through all of this that I'm not sure that your subscribers know that I'd like to share is that it's deeply meaningful to a show to have a significant interest in Broadway shows and a good, what we call, season ticket base. And so it makes our lives, those of us who book and plan these tours 2 and 3 years out, it makes it a lot easier when we can identify cities that have the appetite, the desire, and frankly, the season ticket sales to support these first-class giant tours, right? These aren't the small little shows. So I would just say that that continued support is paramount, and we are grateful to everybody in Omaha and to you, Joan, at the Orpheum, and all of your staff who facilitated that for this. And so we can continue and to make sure that we continue to bring these terrific shows to your audiences.
Well, we are grateful. It's been a great partnership. And as you know, Lauren, we've worked together for a long time to build that subscriber base. And we depend on everybody out there to join us. And so it's hang on to those seats because we will be back. But it is important to the Broadway shows. So, Lauren, I've got a couple of questions that I would like to ask you that came from our subscribers. We asked them to submit a few questions of their own for us tonight before we conclude. And we really sort of have 3 top questions that seem to be repeated quite a bit. The first one is, will we be able to be seated socially distant?
I think, it's hard. The answer is no. Broadway, our big Broadway shows just don't lend themselves to a socially distant audience or stage. Never mind the financial ramifications. But no, the answer is we will wait until it's safe for everybody, both our audiences and the actors and our staffs, to interact closely on stage like we have to do.
Right. And that's why we will start with some of our other types of performances, some of the music and other things that we do here at Omaha Performing Arts. And eventually Broadway will be back. And as Lauren and I have said, it was one of the first industries to close down. And it's probably, what, Lauren, you think, near the last?
Yeah, we have a saying, and I hate to, I don't want it to be pessimistic because I'm a realist, but we'll be probably among the last to come back.
Yeah.
But we will be back.
We will be back. We will be back. The second question we've been seeing and hearing from some of our loyal patrons: what if I have season tickets, but I'm just not comfortable being in a theater? And actually, someone had asked me this the other day, and I said, I'm going to ask everybody to be flexible and just hang in there, because we understand that we want to keep all of you as safe as possible out there. It's just for your benefit, for our teams, our staff, our volunteers, our artists. And we're just going to ask everybody if, you can certainly make that determination at the time that we reopen, whether you're comfortable, but it's going to be some time. So we're just going to ask everybody to, if you just be a little bit patient and hang in there with us. We do want to welcome you back safely. And if you do have some concerns when we reopen, you can certainly get in contact with Ticket Omaha. So the third question, Lauren, that we've got is, I was really looking forward to some of the shows that were canceled or postponed from last season. What's their status?
Well, I can promise you they're going to come to Omaha. I can't tell you exactly when right now. It may not be in the order that we originally promised. It may not be in the exact season we originally promised, but they will return, and we will make specific and great effort that to make sure that those really top-notch shows that I know there's a great desire to see, that we make those as much a priority as possible.
No, and we're all working hard for that. And I know we're continuing to even look at some of the new shows that were on Broadway to be bringing them as well. So we've got down the road some wonderful productions and shows of touring Broadway to return to everybody. So for all of you who've tuned in tonight, I do hope you have learned some things. Maybe we've provided some insights and some background and some maybe a better understanding of what it does take to bring touring Broadway here to the Orpheum and present the finest Broadway productions. As Lauren and I both keep saying, we will return, and it may take us a little bit of time. So we'll work through those details. Do check in. We will be getting some more information out on September 21st for the exciting shows and the seasons we've got. We appreciate all of you. We both can't emphasize it enough. Your patronage, your subscriptions, your enthusiasm and loyalty is really makes the series. It makes this all possible. And we thank you, and we're so very grateful. And speaking of grateful, Lauren, I'm grateful to you for joining us tonight. We thank you. I do love hosting you here in Omaha. I threatened to put the picture up of Lauren when I took her to the zoo, who had a snake draped around her neck. I've got some other photos of her when she was in town, which I will not share. But Lauren, it's always great to see you, and tonight virtually as well. So thank you for joining us here at the Orpheum Theater.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I really look forward to making sure that the Broadway series is part of the recovery. You know what? There's no question that Broadway is a true American art form, and we will persevere. Thank you.
Lauren, your leadership of the Broadway industry, your passion for Broadway, your knowledge makes a difference, not just here in New York, but across the country. And so we are grateful for your leadership for all of us. And thank you and your colleagues. I also want to thank Sue Frost and Meredith Blair for participating via video, and behind the scenes for all of you, our team here at Omaha Performing Arts and at Broadway Across America, who help make the live stream possible. So Lauren, again, my thanks. And to all of you who tuned in tonight, we thank you for joining us. We do miss you. We want you in these empty seats, and I can't wait till we can see you live and in person again. Thanks so much.